Okay, so you ready to dive into some serious AI territory?
Always up for a deep dive, especially with all these notes and articles you've sent about large language models.
Right, LLMs. It's like everyone's talking about them, you included, obviously. Clearly, you're curious about how they work.
Oh, yeah. Beyond just the hype, you've got some stuff here even on GPT-4, right? That's like the varsity team of LLMs.
Exactly. It's one thing to read those headlines about AI writing movie scripts, but what's the reality check? Like, one of your articles talked about AI helping doctors stay updated on research, which is amazing.
Potentially game-changing.
But how do we trust it? Like, how do we even know these LLMs are actually learning?
It's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And it's why evaluating these LLMs is just as important as building them in the first place.
So it's like putting these AI brains to the test.
In a way, yeah. We need ways to know if they're the real deal.
But AI doesn't take standardized tests, do they? How do you grade something like that?
It's a good question. The whole new world of assessment. One way is looking at how well the LLM uses language itself, kind of like if you were grading an essay.
Oh, okay. So checking for grammar and vocab, making sure it's all coherent.
That's one side of it. We call it intrinsic evaluation, seeing if it's got the mechanics of language down.
Makes sense. But smooth talking AI doesn't mean it understands what it's saying, right?
Exactly. You've hit on a crucial point. It's like you can have someone who's a walking dictionary.
But their ideas are all over the place.
Exactly. And that's where extrinsic evaluation comes in. We're looking at whether the LLM can actually do something useful with the language.
So less about perfect grammar, more about real-world skills.
Yes. Like, can it follow complex instructions or translate a document accurately or answer your question in a way that actually helps you?
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's like, can this AI help a doctor make a better diagnosis, not just write a fancy medical report?
Right. You're getting it. The goal is to see if these LLMs can actually perform in the real world, not just in some theoretical language bubble.
Which brings us back to that doctor example. What about keeping them updated on the latest research? One of your notes mentioned that worry.
And it's a valid concern. LLMs are only as good as the data they've been trained on. Imagine a doctor using an LLM that's stuck in 2019.
Yikes. Talking about outdated medical advice.
Right, that's a recipe for disaster. It highlights a huge limitation of LLMs. Their knowledge is only as current as their last update.
So how do we fix that? Do we need to retrain these LLMs every 5 minutes?
Well, retraining that often would be a nightmare, but luckily there's a much more elegant solution, and it's changing the game when it comes to LLMs.
So there's got to be a way to keep these LLMs in the loop, right? Like, how do we get them access to the freshest info?
Well, you're definitely thinking in the right direction. It's all about giving these LLMs a direct line to the latest and greatest.
And that's where things get really interesting, right?
Exactly. And it's got a pretty cool name, too. Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or ROGs for short.
ROG, okay, I like it already. Has a nice ring to it, but what's it all about?
Think of it like this. Imagine giving an LLM access to a library.
Okay, so far so good, but this can't be just any library.
And absolutely not. We're talking about a library that's constantly updating itself with new books, new articles, all the latest research, you name it.
Okay, now we're talking. A never-ending supply of information. That's what we need to keep these LLMs sharp.
Precisely. And that's what Raga does. It's like giving them a backstage pass to the entire internet, constantly feeding them the most up-to-date info.
So going back to that doctor example, we could have an LLM that's basically a walking, talking medical journal, always up to date.
You got it. And not just for medicine. Think about legal research. Imagine an LLM that can sift through every case law, every legal precedent.
Now that's what I call a lawyer's best friend. No more endless nights digging through dusty law books. But hold on a second. Even with all this information at their fingertips?
You're thinking, they still need to know what to do with it all.
Exactly. It's one thing to have access to information, but knowing how to apply it, that's a whole other ballgame.
And that brings us to a crucial aspect of LLMs, one that you've actually touched upon in your notes.
So we've talked about giving LLMs the knowledge, the information, all that good stuff. But I feel like there's a piece missing.
You're right on the money. It's like we've given them all the ingredients.
But no recipe.
Exactly. Or like a fancy kitchen full of gadgets, but no cooking skills.
Okay, I'm with you. We need to actually teach these LLMs how to use all this information in a meaningful way.
And that's where this idea of fine-tuning comes in. You were really interested in AI for legal research, right?
Absolutely. I think that has huge potential.
Right. So let's say we want to build an LLM that can really help lawyers.
Yeah.
We can't just stop at giving it access to a bunch of legal documents.
It's got to understand the law, not just the words on the page, right?
Exactly. So we take a powerful LLM, maybe one that's already pretty good at language in general.
Like that GPT-4 we were talking about earlier.
Perfect example. We take that, and then, this is the fine-tuning part, we train it specifically on legal data, and not just any legal data.
We're talking the real deal, court transcripts, case law, the whole legal library.
Precisely. And by training, I mean feeding it this data, letting it learn the patterns, the jargon, the way lawyers actually use language.
So it's like taking that brilliant student and sending them to law school, getting them specialized.
You got it. It's about taking general language ability and then honing in on a very specific domain.
It's like taking all those raw ingredients, that mountain of legal knowledge, and teaching the LLM to make a perfectly crafted legal argument amazing.
And the best part is, this fine-tuning, it's not just limited to law. We can do it for medicine, finance, you name it. Any field where specialized knowledge is key.
Okay, so just to bring it all together, we've got these LLMs. They're like these powerful language processors. We can test their skills with evaluations, make them super smart with RH, and then to really take it to the next level, we fine-tune them for specific jobs.
And that, right there, that's the recipe for success when it comes to unlocking the true potential of LLMs.
It's like we've taken this complex topic, broken it down step by step, and now our listeners, they're walking away with a whole new understanding of how AI and language can work together.
And that's the power of a good deep dive. It's all about taking those complex topics and making them accessible.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to create the next amazing AI tool, all thanks to a little curiosity and a whole lot of deep diving.
Now, that would be incredible. And to all our listeners out there, if you had the power to create an AI, what would it be? What problem would you solve? What impossible task would you finally be able to tackle? Think about it. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a whole new world of fascinating topics.